Captain Adrian Cole's shuttle descended slowly through the crimson sky of Zyphoria. The planet had once been alive with cities that gleamed under its twin suns, but now it was a wasteland. Smoke curled from ruined towers, and the air carried a bitter, metallic scent that made Adrian's stomach twist. The Zyphorians, he knew, had suffered greatly. Plague and war had ravaged their world, leaving almost nothing behind. Adrian adjusted his visor, scanning the ruins for signs of life. The mission was simple in theory: land, observe, and report back. But every instinct in him told him this would be more complicated. Zyphoria's silence was heavy, almost unbearable, broken only by the occasional groan of a collapsing building. As he walked through a crumbling street, Adrian spotted movement. A figure emerged from the smoke. She was small, delicate in frame, but her posture was rigid, almost defiant. Her skin shimmered faintly under the reddish sun, and her large dark eyes held a sadness that made Adrian stop. Human, she spoke, her voice trembling yet clear in galactic common. I need help. Adrian lowered his visor and took a cautious step forward. I'm Captain Adrian Cole. I'm here to help survivors.
Who are you?
My name is Lyra, she said. Her voice broke as she clutched something to her chest. Adrian realized she held a small glowing cluster, eggs unlike anything he had seen. They pulsed softly like living lights. I'm all that is left of my family. Only my children. My children must live. Adrian felt a chill. The enormity of her words sank in. These were not ordinary eggs. They were Zyphorian embryos, fragile and vital. If they died, an entire race might vanish forever. Adrian started, unsure what to say. Lyra's eyes were fixed on him, pleading. Then she added softly, I will. Share your bed. Just make sure my children live. The words struck him like a thunderclap. He froze. Did she mean this literally? Or was it a cultural phrase he didn't understand? He chose not to ask. Instead, he focused on what mattered: the eggs. Okay, he said carefully. We'll make sure they live. I'll help you. Come with me. Lyra nodded, relief flooding her features, though her body trembled with exhaustion. Adrian could see she had been through unimaginable pain. Together they moved through the city, stepping over debris and fallen structures. The further they went, the more Adrian saw the scale of destruction. Once great towers were reduced to skeletons of steel and glass. Fires smoldered in the streets, and strange twisted plants had begun to grow over the ruins. It was as if the planet itself was reclaiming what had been lost. Lyra walked with careful steps, her hands always near the eggs. She explained in broken sentences that the plague had come quickly, wiping out most of her people. Raiders had arrived afterward, taking what was left. Her mate and siblings had all died. Only she remained with her unborn children. Adrian felt a knot tighten in his chest. Humanity had seen wars and tragedies, but Zyphoria's suffering was different. He had trained for crisis, for combat, and for diplomacy. But nothing had prepared him for the raw, desperate fear of a species on the brink of extinction. Suddenly, a low rumble shook the ground. Dust and small stones cascaded from the buildings around them. Lyra froze, her eyes wide. Raiders, she whispered. Adrian raised his hand. Stay behind me, he said, drawing his sidearm. The street ahead was empty, but he knew the sound of destruction would attract attention. Humans had ingenuity, he thought. He would need to use it if they were to survive. From the shadows, figures emerged, scraggy, agile, and armed with scavenged weapons. The raiders had heard the rumors. Zyphorian eggs survived somewhere in the ruins, and they would stop at nothing to get them. Adrian's pulse quickened. This was no longer a simple mission. It was survival. Run, he shouted, grabbing Lyra's arm. She stumbled but followed, clutching her precious burden tightly. Adrian led them down narrow alleys, weaving between rubble and broken vehicles. His mind raced, planning every move. Humans had a way of thinking differently, he realized. He could anticipate, improvise, and use the environment to his advantage. The raiders chased them, snarling and shouting in their alien tongue. Adrian spotted an old transport vehicle tipped over on its side. With a swift motion, he kicked debris to block the path, slowing the pursuers. Lyra watched in awe, her large eyes reflecting both fear and wonder. They ran into a half-collapsed building, a maze of corridors and shattered floors. Lyra clutched the eggs closer, whispering protective words to them in her language. Adrian realized she was teaching him something essential. Survival was not just about strength, but care, patience, and attention. Every life mattered, Hours passed, though it felt like minutes. They hid in shadows, drank what little water remained in Lyra's pack, and rested only when the danger seemed distant. Adrian observed her closely. Despite her grief, she had remarkable resilience. She adapted quickly, used instincts he didn't fully understand, and kept the eggs alive under extreme stress. Humans had strength, but so did the Xiphorians, different but equally vital. At night, under the dim glow of Xiphoria's twin moons, Adrian and Lyra made a small camp. The air was still, almost peaceful compared to the chaos of the day. Adrian looked at the eggs and then at Lyra. "I don't know how your species survives like this," he said softly. "I don't think humans could do it without connection, without caring like you do." Lyra tilted her head. "Connection. Important. Love. Protect. Children. Life." Adrian nodded. He understood now. Her words were simple, but the meaning was profound. The survival of life, the willingness to sacrifice, the courage to keep going. These were universal, even across species. Morning came, and with it, new challenges. Smoke in the distance indicated that raiders were still active. Adrian knew they could not stay in one place. Lyra's eggs were too fragile to move recklessly, but they could not remain in ruins either. They needed a safe place, somewhere untouched, where the Xiphorian children could survive. Adrian thought about Earth, about human cities and technology. Humans were not physically the strongest, but they had creativity, strategy, and compassion. That combination could turn the odds even here on a dying world. He would use every ounce of human ingenuity to protect Lyra and her children. "Lyra," he said, "we need to move. I know a place where you might be safe, but it will be dangerous getting there. Can you trust me?" Lyra looked at him, her gaze steady despite the exhaustion in her body. "I trust. You help children live." Adrian placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "I promise. We'll get them to safety." For a moment, the weight of the world seemed to lift, replaced by a fragile hope. A human and a Xiphorian walking together through fire and ruin, bound by survival and trust. Adrian felt the stirrings of something profound. Humans could make a difference, not just in wars or exploration, but in saving lives, in nurturing hope where it seemed impossible. They set off again, leaving behind the ruined city and moving toward the uncertain horizon. Each step was heavy with danger, but also with purpose. Adrian and Lyra moved as one, human courage and alien resilience intertwined in a fight for life. The eggs pulsed softly, a reminder of what they were fighting for, the future of a species. Fragile yet full of potential. The sun rose higher, burning through the red haze, and Adrian thought about the journey ahead. The path was uncertain, the enemies real, and the stakes unimaginably high. But humans had faced impossible odds before, and perhaps this time ingenuity, compassion, and courage could tip the balance. Lyra's whispered words floated in the air, simple yet profound. Live. Children must live. Adrian knew this was more than a mission. It was a responsibility, a test of what humans could achieve when life itself hung in the balance. And so, they continued, stepping into the unknown together, carrying hope like a fragile flame against the darkness of a dying world. The first light of Xiphoria's twin suns cast a strange glow over the wasteland as Adrian and Lyra pressed forward. The ruined city behind them was quiet now, but silence did not mean safety. The raiders could be anywhere, lurking in the shadows, watching, waiting for the right moment to strike. Adrian tightened his grip on his sidearm, and Lyra clutched her precious eggs closer, each pulse of light within them like a heartbeat, reminding them both of what was at stake. "We need to move fast," Adrian said, his voice low and steady. "Staying in one place is too dangerous. Do you know where to go?" Lyra shook her head. "I know safe place. Only forest. Far away, maybe. Shelter." Her accent, broken but melodic, carried the weight of her grief and determination. Adrian nodded. He had learned quickly that patience was key. She trusted him, but she was also wary of a world that had taken everything from her. They walked carefully through the jagged streets, stepping over debris and avoiding the unstable ruins. Strange plants, twisted and blackened from the plague, grew through cracks in the pavement. Adrian had never seen anything like them. Their leaves were sharp, their roots thick and dangerous, but Lyra seemed familiar with every step, guiding him as much as he guided her. Hours passed, and the heat of Xiphoria's twin suns pressed down on them. The eggs were delicate, needing protection from both the scorching light and the cold nights that came too quickly. Lyra whispered to them as they walked, murmuring encouragement in her soft language. Adrian watched her, amazed at her courage and focus. Even in despair, she remained committed to her children's survival. As they left the city, a sudden noise made Adrian freeze. The sound of scraping metal and low, guttural voices echoed from a nearby ridge. Raiders. He motioned for Lyra to hide behind a broken wall. They crouched low, hearts pounding. The raiders were armed with scavenged weapons and crude armor, their movements unpredictable and aggressive. Following? Lyra whispered. Her eyes darted nervously from shadow to shadow. They are, Adrian confirmed. We have to keep moving. Follow my lead. Adrian scanned the environment. Humans had a unique advantage: quick thinking and improvisation. He spotted a narrow alley between two collapsed buildings. If they could reach it, the raiders would have difficulty following. This way, he said, grabbing Lyra's hand and guiding her. They ran as silently as possible, dodging loose debris and slipping through shadows. Adrian knew that the eggs were vulnerable. One wrong move, one jolt, and they could be lost forever. He adjusted his pace to Lyra's, keeping her safe while maintaining speed. The raiders were fast, but Adrian's careful planning and human ingenuity gave them a chance. The alley led to a small courtyard filled with rubble and broken machinery. Adrian paused, listening. The raiders had slowed. Perhaps they were cautious. Perhaps they underestimated human tactics. He took a deep breath and whispered, "We'll use this place. Follow my instructions." Adrian moved quickly, using the debris to set a trap. Broken metal beams and loose panels were positioned to block and confuse anyone who followed. He worked with a precision that came from years of experience, blending human creativity with immediate necessity. Lyra watched, amazed at his methods. She had relied on instinct all her life, but Adrian's strategies were different, calculated, clever, and effective. The first raider appeared, cautious and suspicious. He stepped into the trap and a pile of debris fell in front of him with a loud crash. The other raiders hesitated, giving Adrian and Lyra precious seconds to slip away. They ran again, leaving the raiders behind, their pursuit slowed by human ingenuity and quick thinking. Hours turned into a long trek. Lyra guided Adrian to the edge of a forest that shimmered with alien light. The trees were tall, with leaves that seemed to hum softly in the wind. The forest was dense and wild, but it offered hope, a place where the eggs might survive. Adrian felt a sense of relief, but he knew this was only the beginning. Danger still lurked, and the eggs needed constant care. They set up a temporary shelter in a small clearing. Adrian cleared the ground of sharp rocks and arranged branches to create a makeshift roof. Lyra placed the eggs carefully inside, their glow softening under the protective cover. Adrian observed her rituals, fascinated by how precise and gentle she was. Every action, every word seemed designed to comfort and protect her children. They need warmth, Lyra explained softly. If cold, they die. She looked at Adrian, hope and desperation mingling in her gaze. Adrian realized that her earlier words, "share your bed," were literal. Humans could provide warmth in a way that could stabilize the Zyphorian embryos. "I understand," he said, nodding. "We'll do whatever it takes." That night, under the glow of the forest, Adrian stayed close to the eggs, using his body heat to keep them safe. Lyra whispered thanks over and over, a soft song of gratitude that seemed to calm both human and alien alike. In that fragile moment, a bond formed between them, not just of trust, but of shared purpose. The forest, however, was not entirely safe. Strange creatures roamed, drawn by sound and movement. Adrian used his knowledge of human survival tactics to create alarms and barriers. He fashioned tripwires and noisemakers from branches and rocks, setting them around their small camp. Lyra watched, learning quickly, and together they adapted to their environment. By the second day, Adrian noticed that Lyra had begun to open up more. She spoke of her past, of her family, and of Zyphoria before the plague. Her words painted vivid pictures of vibrant cities, bustling marketplaces, and skies filled with colorful flying creatures. Adrian listened intently, realizing that the Zyphorians were not just survivors. They were a culture rich with history and knowledge. The thought of their extinction weighed heavily on him. During a brief moment of rest, Lyra showed Adrian how the eggs reacted to her voice. They pulsed gently when she spoke, as if responding to her warmth and tone. Adrian marveled at the connection. He realized that survival was not just about protection from danger. It was about nurturing, about empathy, about understanding life in ways humans sometimes overlooked. Their journey through the forest was slow and cautious. Every sound made them pause, every shadow could hide danger. Yet Adrian noticed something remarkable. Lyra was not just reactive, she was resourceful. She pointed out safe paths, edible plants, and water sources. Together, human and Xiphorian complemented each other's strengths. Adrian brought strategy and foresight. Lyra brought instinct and knowledge of her planet. One evening, they encountered a small river. The water was clean, and the current gentle. Lyra gestured for the eggs to be lowered carefully, and Adrian helped. The water cooled their bodies after long hours of walking. But more importantly, it reminded them both that life persisted even in the harshest conditions. The eggs glowed brighter, as if sensing safety for the first time in days. As night fell again, Adrian and Lyra sat near the fire they had built. Lyra's voice was quiet but filled with emotion. Humans. Strong, clever, protect children. Thank you. Adrian nodded, humbled. He had always known humans could survive, but seeing their adaptability used to save another species gave him a new sense of pride. We make a good team, he said with a small smile. Different strengths, but together we can survive. Lyra nodded, her eyes reflecting the firelight. In that moment, a fragile hope grew, a hope that the Xiphorian race might endure, thanks to human courage and ingenuity. The next day, the forest presented new challenges: steep cliffs, dense undergrowth, and sudden storms. Adrian relied on his training, scouting ahead, marking safe paths and guiding Lyra around hazards. Lyra, in turn, adapted quickly, learning from him and adjusting her movements to keep the eggs safe. Their trust in each other deepened, unspoken but absolute. By the third day, they reached a higher plateau with a clear view of the surrounding land. Adrian could see smoke rising in the distance. Raiders still hunted for survivors. But he also saw something else. A distant valley, lush and hidden, untouched by the plague and destruction. It was a possible sanctuary, a place where the eggs might finally hatch safely. Lyra's voice trembled with hope. Their safe place. Children, live? Adrian nodded, determination firm in his gaze. Yes, we'll get there. No matter what. As they prepared to descend toward the valley, Adrian reflected on their journey. Humans were not the strongest species physically, but they were adaptable, creative, and compassionate. That combination, he realized, could tip the balance in even the most desperate situations. With careful planning, courage, and trust, they had survived Xiphoria's dangers so far. Lyra, holding her glowing eggs, looked at Adrian with a mixture of relief and admiration. Human, strange, but good. Protect children. Adrian smiled faintly. We'll make sure they live. That's the promise. Together they set off again, moving carefully but with purpose. The journey was far from over, but for the first time in days, both human and Xiphorian felt a spark of hope. Survival was possible, not just for themselves, but for the fragile new life they carried. And in that hope, the seeds of courage, ingenuity, and unity took root, preparing them for the trials yet to come. The hidden valley stretched before Adrian and Lyra like a sanctuary untouched by Xiphoria's plague and chaos. Trees arched high, their leaves shimmering with soft, otherworldly light, and a gentle river wound through the valley, its water pure and calm. For the first time since leaving the ruined city, Lyra allowed herself a deep, shivering breath of relief. We safe? She asked, her voice trembling. The eggs she carried pulsed gently as if sensing the safety of the valley. For now, Adrian said, scanning the surrounding forest carefully. But safe doesn't mean easy. We'll need to make a proper shelter. The eggs? They need warmth, constant attention. You'll need to rest too, Lyra. Lyra shook her head. No, children. Cold must. Keep warm. Her large eyes glimmered with desperation, and Adrian realized that her words were not just about the environment. They were literal. Xiphorian embryos were extremely sensitive, and human warmth could provide a life-saving solution. Adrian adjusted his gear and surveyed the area. Then we'll do this together. Humans can help in ways you might not expect. We'll keep your children safe. Lyra looked at him, her gaze filled with a mix of confusion and hope. You help? Yes, Adrian said firmly. We'll use what we have to protect life. That's what humans do. They began work immediately. Adrian cleared a small patch of soft ground near the river and built a makeshift shelter using fallen branches and alien vines that were surprisingly strong. Lyra arranged the eggs carefully inside, murmuring soothing words over them. Every movement she made was deliberate and precise. Adrian noticed that even though she had survived alone for days, she had not lost the tenderness that connected her to her children. Hours passed. The valley's beauty was deceptive. Predators roamed unseen, and sudden storms were common in this region. Adrian remained alert, scouting the perimeter and improvising defenses. Lyra watched him closely, her eyes reflecting both admiration and curiosity. Humans, she realized, were clever. They could anticipate danger, improvise solutions, and endure hardship with determination. As night fell, a chill swept through the valley. The eggs pulsed weakly, signaling distress. Lyra panicked, her voice quivering. "Cold, must warm." She looked at Adrian pleadingly. Adrian understood immediately. Humans emitted body heat in a way that could stabilize Xiphorian embryos. He motioned for Lyra to rest. "Let me do it," he said. "It's safe with me. I'll protect them tonight." Lyra hesitated, then nodded, placing the eggs carefully against Adrian's chest. The soft glow of the embryos grew steadier, as warmth from his body seeped into them. Lyra whispered softly, almost as if singing, her voice mingling with Adrian's steady heartbeat. In that quiet moment, a bond deeper than words formed between them, a bond of trust, empathy, and shared responsibility for life itself. Hours passed, and Adrian felt a profound connection to the fragile Xiphorian life he was protecting. Humans had survived countless challenges not because they were the strongest, but because they adapted, thought ahead, and cared deeply for others. Here, on this distant world, he realized that those qualities could save an entire species. As dawn approached, Lyra stirred. "Children, stronger?" she asked, her voice trembling with cautious hope. "Yes," Adrian replied. "They're stronger, but we have to keep moving. The valley is safe for now, but we need a permanent solution." Over the next few days, Adrian and Lyra explored the valley. They found abundant water and food sources, and Adrian used his survival knowledge to create simple tools and traps to protect against predators. Lyra guided him through the valley's natural hazards, hidden cliffs, quicksand-like mud patches, and territorial creatures that could attack without warning. During this time, Adrian realized that survival was a blend of human ingenuity and Xiphorian instinct. He improvised protective measures, nets made from vines, noise alarms using hollow branches, and fire-resistant barriers to shield the eggs from sudden storms. Lyra assisted, learning quickly from his methods while teaching him subtleties of Xiphorian biology, how certain plants could heal minor injuries, how vibrations in the ground signaled approaching predators, and how to keep the eggs safe from environmental stress. One afternoon, a loud roar echoed across the valley. Adrian and Lyra froze. A massive predator, unlike anything Adrian had ever seen, emerged from the forest, a beast with thick spiny armor and glowing eyes. Its roar was deafening, and it moved with terrifying speed. "Back!" Adrian shouted, pulling Lyra and the eggs behind a large rock. The creature sniffed the air, circling them. Adrian thought quickly. Humans were not the strongest physically, but they were resourceful. Using a combination of vines, rocks, and fire, he created a trap. When the beast lunged, it became entangled, thrashing and growling, giving Adrian and Lyra a chance to escape further into the forest. Lyra watched in awe. "Human. Clever," she whispered. "Strong, not like muscle." "Mind strong," Adrian nodded. "Survival isn't just strength. It's thinking, planning, and caring enough to act. That's what humans do." Night fell again, and the eggs glowed softly against Adrian's chest, stable and warm. Lyra's eyes softened as she watched him. "Thank you, human. You saved children." Adrian felt a surge of responsibility and pride. He had faced wars, disasters, and countless challenges, but nothing compared to the weight of saving an entire species' future. Yet he also felt hope. Human courage and ingenuity were not just tools for survival. They were a lifeline for others, a bridge between species. The next morning, Adrian and Lyra discovered a hidden cave along the riverbank. It was dry, spacious, and shielded from predators and storms. Adrian immediately saw its potential as a more permanent shelter. They worked together, clearing debris and reinforcing the entrance with vines and rocks. Lyra placed the eggs inside, their glow steadying in the safety of the cave. Adrian realized that this was more than just survival. It was a test of human adaptability and empathy. He had no special powers, no advanced alien technology, yet he could make a difference. With careful thought, courage, and compassion, he could ensure life continued, even on a planet ravaged by destruction. As days passed, the bond between Adrian and Lyra grew stronger. They shared stories of their worlds. Adrian spoke of Earth, of human cities, families, and struggles, while Lyra shared memories of Zyphoria's vibrant past. Through these exchanges, Adrian understood the Zyphorians not just as survivors but as a culture rich in knowledge, emotion, and tradition. Protecting their children became more than a mission. It became a responsibility to preserve a legacy. But danger was never far. Raiders still prowled the outskirts, drawn by rumors of surviving Zyphorian eggs. Adrian devised warning systems, simple alarms using vines and stones, patterns to detect movement, and traps to slow any intruders. Lyra assisted, learning quickly and adapting her instincts to his strategies. Together they became a team, combining human ingenuity with Zyphorian knowledge. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the valley, Adrian looked at Lyra. "The journey isn't over," he said. "We've kept the eggs safe so far, but we need to find a permanent solution, somewhere truly secure, where your children can hatch and thrive." Lyra nodded, her eyes filled with trust. "I believe. You help children live." Adrian smiled faintly, feeling the weight of their shared responsibility. Humanity had always survived through challenges, not because of strength alone, but because of courage, empathy, and creativity. Here, on a distant world, those same qualities were giving hope to another species, giving life a chance where it might have ended. The valley, beautiful and serene, offered a brief reprieve, but the journey was far from over. Adrian knew that each step forward required vigilance, ingenuity, and the willingness to act selflessly. The eggs pulsed softly against his chest, a reminder of what was at stake and of the power of human adaptability in the face of overwhelming odds. As the night deepened, Lyra whispered again, almost to herself, "Human. Strange, but good. Protect children." Adrian nodded, feeling the truth of her words. Strange or not, humans could make a difference, and here in this fragile valley on a dying planet he would prove it. The hidden valley, which had seemed a sanctuary, was no longer quiet. Smoke curled in the distance, signaling the presence of raiders. Adrian and Lyra had been vigilant, but the predators of Zyphoria were persistent. The raiders had learned that Zyphorian eggs were hidden here, and they would not stop until they claimed them. Adrian crouched behind a large rock, surveying the valley floor. "They're coming," he said. "We need a plan or we'll lose everything." Lyra's large eyes narrowed. "Children must live. We fight?" Adrian shook his head. "Not with brute force. With strategy. We have to use our brains, not just weapons." Together they prepared. Adrian guided Lyra to set traps around the cave entrance using vines, rocks, and fire-resistant plants. They dug shallow pits covered with fragile branches and created alarms that would signal movement. Every step was precise. Human ingenuity paired with Zyphorian instinct became a powerful combination. The raiders appeared at the edge of the forest as the sun rose. They were numerous, armed with scavenged weapons and shouting in their guttural tongue. Adrian stayed calm. He had faced overwhelming odds before, but this was different. The stakes were life itself. Not his own, but the fragile Zyphorian embryos cradled by Lyra. Adrian and Lyra waited in silence, hidden among the trees. As the raiders approached, their first footfalls triggered the alarms. Rocks rattled, branches snapped, and warning whistles echoed. Some raiders fell into shallow pits, while others hesitated, unsure of the valley's hazards. Adrian's eyes glimmered with determination. This was exactly why humans survived through ingenuity. The first raider managed to approach the cave entrance. Adrian leaped from cover, throwing a small bundle of rocks to knock him off balance. The raider tumbled into one of their traps, tangled in vines. Lyra hissed softly, a mix of fear and relief. The battle was chaotic. The raiders were aggressive, but Adrian's careful planning and quick thinking kept him and Lyra safe. They used the environment to their advantage. Rolling boulders, smoke from small fires, and narrow paths slowed the attackers. Adrian observed carefully, predicting movements and adapting strategies on the fly. One raider managed to get close to Lyra. She hissed and prepared to defend the eggs, but Adrian intercepted, using a vine to trip the raider. Lyra's gratitude was silent but deep. She began to see humans as more than strangers. They were courageous, resourceful, and capable of protecting life beyond their own species. Despite their success in slowing the raiders, one of the eggs became unstable. Lyra froze, panic overtaking her usual calm. Adrian acted instantly, placing the egg against his chest, using his body heat to stabilize it. The raiders were still a threat, but Adrian refused to abandon a life in his care. "Move now," he shouted, guiding Lyra and the remaining eggs through a hidden passage he had discovered earlier. They ran through the forest, the glowing embryos secured against Adrian's chest. He set traps behind them, creating obstacles that slowed their pursuers. Hours later, they reached a higher ridge, catching their breath. The raiders had been forced to retreat, confused and frustrated by the traps. Lyra's hands trembled as she held the eggs. "Children, safe?" she whispered. "For now," Adrian said, gently touching her shoulder. "We've bought them time, but the journey isn't over." Lyra's gaze softened. She began to understand something essential. Humans were not just strong or clever. They were capable of sacrifice, courage, and empathy. Adrian had risked his life to protect another species, showing her that survival was more than instinct. It was morality in action. As night fell, Adrian and Lyra reinforced their temporary shelter in the valley. They shared quiet moments, discussing strategy, history, and hope. The raiders might return, but Adrian was confident humans, when combined with trust, ingenuity, and courage, could face nearly any challenge. By the end of the night, the eggs glowed softly, stable and safe. Lyra whispered a song of gratitude, and Adrian realized that this was more than survival. It was a test of humanity's ability to inspire hope across worlds. The sun rose again over Zyphoria, painting the valley in warm light. Adrian and Lyra prepared for the next stage of their journey, finding a permanent sanctuary for the Zyphorian children, a place where they could hatch safely and begin the future of their race. They were battered but unbroken, strengthened by the trials of the day and the trust that had grown between human and alien. The distant valley shimmered in the morning light, promising safety and renewal. Adrian and Lyra moved cautiously but with determination, each step measured and careful. The journey had been long, filled with danger, but the eggs in Lyra's care pulsed steadily, a sign that life could endure even in the harshest conditions. As they approached the sanctuary, Adrian felt a surge of hope. Trees arched over the hidden valley like protective arms, and a small river wound through its center. The area was untouched, peaceful, and rich with resources. Adrian could already imagine the eggs hatching here, life beginning anew. Lyra slowed, tears glistening in her eyes. "Safe, children live?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Yes," Adrian said softly. "We made it. But we have to be careful until they hatch. This valley is safe, but life is fragile." Together they cleared a small area near the river, creating a hatchery from soft plants and stones. Adrian arranged the space, making it secure from predators, while Lyra positioned the eggs gently. She whispered to them, her words filled with hope and love. Adrian watched, fascinated by the bond between mother and child. Even unborn, the connection was powerful and undeniable. Days passed. Adrian and Lyra remained close to the eggs, keeping them warm and safe. Lyra had grown to trust him completely. "Human, you save children," she said one evening, her voice soft but filled with gratitude. Grateful life. Continue because..." You, Adrian smiled faintly, humbled. He had always known humans could survive through ingenuity and courage, but seeing his actions directly sustain life on another world was profoundly moving. Humanity, he realized, could be a force for hope, even across the stars. As the eggs began to hatch, the valley filled with soft chirps and gentle movements. Small, delicate Zyphorian children emerged, their glowing skin pulsating faintly. Lyra wept softly, overwhelmed by relief and joy. Adrian watched quietly, knowing that his actions had directly contributed to this miracle. The raiders never returned. Adrian's careful traps, combined with the valley's natural protection, ensured their retreat. For the first time since their journey began, a sense of peace settled over the hidden valley. Lyra turned to Adrian, her expression one of deep respect and gratitude. "Human, strange but good. Protect. Children, life. Continue," Adrian nodded. "It's what humans do." We adapt, we protect, and we care. Even in impossible situations, we find a way to survive, and to help others survive too. Together they watched as the Xiphorian children explored their new world. Some stumbled, some glowed brighter than others, but all were alive. Adrian realized that humanity's ingenuity, courage, and empathy had bridged the gap between species. They had preserved life where it might have ended, giving a future to an entire race. Lyra placed her hand on Adrian's shoulder, a silent gesture of gratitude that spoke volumes. Children, live because you hope. Xiphoria. Adrian looked around the valley, feeling the weight of responsibility and the lightness of triumph. Humans were not the strongest physically, but their creativity, determination, and capacity for compassion could change worlds. Here on Xiphoria, he had seen it firsthand. As the twin suns set, bathing the valley in soft orange and red light, Adrian and Lyra knew their journey had changed them both. They were no longer just human and Xiphorian. They were partners in survival, bound by courage, ingenuity, and the will to protect life. The valley, alive with the soft glow of new Xiphorian children, symbolized more than safety. It was a legacy, a testament to what humans could achieve when they acted selflessly. Adrian realized that hope was not just a feeling. It was a force, capable of sustaining life and inspiring courage across worlds. Lyra looked at Adrian, her eyes bright with emotion. Human, Xiphoria. Thank you, children. Safe, future, live. Adrian smiled, feeling the truth of her words. Humanity had not just survived. They had become a lifeline, a bridge of hope between species. In a universe full of danger and despair, humans could be a force for life, for courage, and for compassion. As night fell over the valley, the glowing Xiphorian children nestled safely under Lyra's care, and Adrian stood nearby, vigilant yet content. He knew that this was more than a mission completed. It was proof that humans, with their resilience, ingenuity, and empathy, could make a lasting difference in the universe, and so on a distant world life endured. Xiphoria's future was secure, the children alive and thriving, and the bond between species stronger than ever. Humanity had shown its strength not through force but through courage, cleverness, and care, a true testament to the best of what humans could be.